So my name is Matt Reed. I lead the security business here at ITS. I've been here for 2 years, but have almost 20 years of IT experience. I have a consulting background. I did come from the customer space, as a lot of us have. This is the agenda that we're going to go over today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about ITS. If you're not familiar with us, I see some friends on the webinar there. So hello again. But for people that don't know about our company, we'll give you a little bit of a background there. To set the table and kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about in the realm of DLP, it's probably prudent to just give a slight level set on what the DLP solution is. We partner closely with Semantic for security technology, and we're going to talk about Semantic DLP. From there, we'll go into the levels of DLP maturity. DLP follows a maturity model, and that's based on a common software maturity model or a capability model that resembles ITIL. And then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Navin, who is a security architect on my team and one of our best DLP guys. So he's going to go over some of the essential elements of a successful DLP program and talk about some of the common missteps in risk reduction. So as you're going through that risk reduction lifecycle, what are the pitfalls? Where are the places you can get stuck? And how do you continue to move forward, and how do you get unstuck? So just a little bit of a DLP level set. And this is kind of an overview of Semantic DLP. So we start on the left with what they consider to be data at rest, or the storage-based component, and that's where we have products like Network Discover and Network Protect. Data Insight is what's giving us visibility into information use as well as the access to that. So classification, right? And that makes a stronger DLP approach. As you move toward the middle with the endpoint, we're talking about data at rest as well, and the products that apply there are Endpoint Discover and Endpoint Prevent, finding sensitive information that's accessed or available via the endpoint, and how to put the controls in place to prevent sensitive information loss that ensure privacy. And then data in motion, right? So the Network Monitor product, Network Prevent for web and email. And this is kind of a common denominator in a lot of DLP environments and a lot of organizations that are trying to protect information. This is often a priority threat vector, is the concern that email can be leveraged to leak information, even if it's someone just intending to do their job. And then this is all supported by what's considered to be the management platform, and that's or the Enforce platform, as it's referred to, and that's backed by an Oracle database as well as encrypted. So what you have is a comprehensive platform to protect information assets, educate your employees, empower the lines of business to play their part in policy improvement and development. So this is often referred to as the risk reduction waterfall, and this is essentially the life cycle of risk reduction according to Semantic. So the journey starts on the left with visibility and the installation of the technology, which is essentially where organizations get a baseline for what's going on in the organization and in the environment. And usually from there, they identify, and we see this a lot with our risk assessments that we conduct with Semantic DLP technology. We'll find some broken business processes, and we'll find some things that are violations of the company information policy, and we get an opportunity to correct them, or the organizations get an opportunity to correct them or remediate. Then IT is ideally going to begin collaboration or get into deeper collaboration with the various lines of business as well as educating users on the company policy and violations that could be occurring. So this is where we kind of transcend into this critical phase, or really and ideally consider it to be more of an outcome, where the combination of notifying people and the controls and the technology itself get one to this desired outcome of prevention. So we get the privilege of working with a lot of organizations who invest in DLP initiatives, but get stuck along the way. We're involved in a lot of areas of respective selling cycles, as well as adoption life cycles with organizations. Sometimes we're involved from the very beginning, and we can help write a path and author a roadmap with the customer and with the organization to get them where they want to be, depending on their appetite for risk reduction and their appetite for an optimized solution. And then sometimes we're involved somewhere in the middle. So someone will reach out to us and try to get some assistance or get some help to get unstuck. So after a number of successful engagements, Navin Dean, who's joined me on the webinar, we decided to put together a presentation to share with everyone around some of those experiences and some of those best practices. So, we're going to share some of that stuff. We're going to talk about those challenges, what to do about it, especially the organizations that have invested in DLP and are committed to information protection and privacy, but maybe need some help being shepherded through that life cycle. So these are the various levels of DLP maturity. So if you're the ITIL guys and gals out there are probably smiling and wringing their hands, and that's why I like this, as it follows that standard software capability model that we know and love from ITIL. So in talking about the levels of DLP maturity, as we go through the rest of the presentation, and when Navin is going through these various areas of focus, keep this maturity, these levels in mind, because within each area of focus, you can apply this element of measurement, right? Whether you are maybe in a little bit more of a reactive stage or mode of operation, be thinking about that along the lines as far as how you would move forward and how you would ideally proceed to more of an optimized or more of a proactive posture or stance. So keep this in mind as we go through the next part of the presentation. And with that, I'd love to introduce Navin Dean. And as I said, Navin is an architect on our team. He is based in Central Florida, but travels all over the country doing a lot of great artwork with DLP and encryption for organizations. He actually comes from the healthcare space, which is an area where we're doing a lot of great work these days. As you know, healthcare has become a big focus, and the protected health information or medical billing information has become a much sought after target. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Navin Dean. And
great, thank you, Matt. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I'd like to jump right into this slide and start off talking about some prerequisites. There are primarily two high-level elements that can hinder the progression of a DLP program or determine the success. You have the business and technical or IT side, and the overarching framework is actually security governance. So governance, often codified or translated into DLP or semantic terms as a DLP steering committee, and it provides strategic direction to those developing the DLP program, particularly in the areas of policy development and management, incident remediation process development and execution, collection and communication of metrics demonstrating program effectiveness and results, employee awareness, training and engagement, and the selection and phasing of the DLP solution deployment. So in addition, security governance includes various teams that are involved with the DLP program, including the steering committee, the business enablement team, the incident response team, and the technical support team. For security governance, we examine who provides strategic direction for the program, how involved executive stakeholders and business units are in policy definition and monitoring, as well as how the incident response team and technical team are supported by the steering committee and the business units. So, understanding, our customers, we can, build a good program for them to kind of get them unstuck with respect to, what resources they have. And you guys must be saying, hey, Navin, we're a small team, we lack resources. We have many people wearing many hats and doing many things. We don't have the time to, get involved with all of these different types of logistics and a security governance initiative. So, that's understood. However, you can still kind of have a divide and conquer approach where you do a phased rollout or phased deployment and take it, step by step, and not go at it in a way that you're going to inundate yourself with incidents. You're going to deploy all these technologies or modules all at once. So, taking those things into consideration is important with the inception or the early stages of DLP. One thing here is that, we're going to deploy it in a phased, prioritized approach. They don't take on too much at once, and follow, the maturity model or that water flow model, as Matt was pointing out earlier there. So some, recommendations there is to continue regular meetings and schedule and level of engagement. Seek, governing board assistance when, formalizing policy management processes, standardizing an incident response process, and determine metrics for measuring operational and risk reduction success. And in addition, you have to ensure your program documentation details roles and responsibility, incident and data access requirements and controls to demonstrate adherence to, corporate compliance and privacy requirements. So we have all of these people or elements or groups in place. How are we going to translate that to policy and policy development? So there are some, understanding the limitations and also, where your data is, the entry and exit points. This kind of goes back a little bit to data governance and data classification. If we don't understand how the business is operating or doing their daily workflow, it's going to be an uphill battle and a challenge. False positives, you're going to be fanning out incidents that does not make sense to the business. So gathering those requirements ahead of time is a big prerequisite here to allowing yourself to handle DLP and moving along with that maturity model and not getting stuck with different areas of the business, challenging IT, increasing their total cost of ownership here. So, understanding the entry and exit points of your sensitive data, and this deals with data governance, understanding the department workflow, how they're handling that IP, that PII, that PHI, or PCI, whatever, your policies would comprise of. And this is where your business units would come into play with the steering committee and the incident response. So you would typically have to lean on them quite a bit for the policy manager to write effective policies and to minimize false positives. And if even fanning out the incidents or pushing the incidents out to the business unit, have them deal with it and handle it, and lean back to IT or security compliance for any type of guidance or additional forensics work. So identifying, the department workflows, maybe it's old processes while mandates have changed. They're misusing the technology where they would have to get some type of training or enablement there. And then once again, lean on the departments or the business units. Maybe they have a liaison already there, a departmental IT consultant, or someone that can kind of bridge the gap between the business and the IT side. So once all that data is gathered from the data governance side, you can then start mocking up your policies for creation, testing, tuning, figuring out what the best deployment modules are. So maybe you've done endpoint and you only want this specific policy for endpoint, then we have to take that into consideration and make sure our policies are effectively doing what they're designed to do. So considering the fan in and fan out model, or something I call a hybrid model, where we send these incidents to the business units because they're the ones who are responsible for that data. They own that data. It's their departments that are creating these incidents in the system. So I think it's best that they handle it, since they have some type of relationship with the employees, as well as understanding the workflow and how to make that more efficient or more secure. So it's important to develop the response strategy before deploying DLP so that you can respond effectively as the system begins to capture incidents. If your organization is already has an existing incident response team strategy and tools, you can definitely incorporate your data loss prevention incident response strategy into that framework. And the next slide here is we're developing a risk reporting strategy, and some things to definitely take into consideration here is establish your risk reduction goals that you can quantify and track over time. So a couple of recommendations here is that identify one or two key metrics for quarterly risk reduction goals, such as the percentage decline in high severity incident, the percentage decline across business units, and the decline of incidents due to automated business processes. In addition, determine which responders or business stakeholders and executives need to see which reports, and create and schedule those reports accordingly. And those things can automatically be scheduled in the system to send out daily, weekly, whatever that frequency is. The incident remediation and workflow process, definitely needs to be developed, and create some type of workflow diagram, and that would be helpful. And these are some of the things that ITS also provides and help, kind of give you that roadmap and guidance on, how to proceed with these types of strategies, and also your DLP maturity. One of the most important things here is user education and employee communication, because effectively, this is where it all starts, is with your employees and the people. Developing an employee communication strategy, requires thorough planning and review. It's important to get executive commitment for any employee communication plan so that executive level stakeholders can help drive the entire process from the top down. Also, any employee communication plan, must be thoroughly vetted by your organization's, legal, HR departments, as well as by any executive level stakeholders. So ensure that you understand all country-specific laws or state local laws and practices. Enforce consistency across messaging and employee notification. Take the time to develop effective messaging, in terms of tone and content, and decide on the frequency and delivery channels of your messaging. Also, ensure that your employees know your organization practices and expectations regarding data security. A couple of recommendations that I've provided to some customers is that you can develop employee training on such topics as regulation and compliance, cost to the company if data is compromised, and corporate security best practices such as using encryption or avoiding sending email to public webmail services. You can also list frequently asked questions that include contact information for getting more details, and some in the maturity model in the notification stage where we have those pop-ups. Those pop-up boxes can definitely serve as a communication vector where we would put in the policy number, the link to your policy page, and also any kind of hotline number or service desk number if you have any questions. So that pop-up box is where we see, or the notification stage is where we see a dramatic decline in incidents. So it's a phased process. It's very methodical. These things take time in very large organizations, and the way that it's best approached is getting commitment from executive leadership and stakeholders to kind of push this. So there are some pitfalls here where there's turnaround, maybe there's the business side is only thinking about just a checkbox DLP and not being proactive with this solution. So those things take time and convincing to understand the value here of a DLP program and how to effectively use it and not have it erode over time. So I know most CISOs are concerned that they want to leverage all these tools all at once right away, hit the ground running. But obviously there's the technology side of things where things have to be in a phased approach. There could be resources that are not prepared to handle this, and there's training involved, and all of these things need to be taken into consideration here. One thing I want to go back to is the policy architecture. So I talked about all these different things and data governance and security governance and driving this, but understanding what DLP can do is very important as well, and how to structure your policies accordingly. Many customers that I've gone to, their policy structure was very messy and inconsistent, hard to follow, duplication of rules across policies, in addition duplication across detection servers. So there's a hierarchy here and a framework that we implement, ITS that is, to help develop that and make it more linearized, more compartmentalized, and easy to understand and follow. So if anyone is coming in new and they would like to get training, or a new employee starts and someone's transitioning this work, that framework or that visual depicts exactly where it starts and where it ends, and there's no miscommunication or misinterpretation there because of the linear framework that's provided from the policy architecture. So one of the basic policy architectures that can be used with this type of maturity is starting off with your policy groups, checking off the appropriate detection technology, creating your policy according to that technology, and having it sent out to the appropriate business unit or role. So, that business unit may have a security mailbox that they go into maybe, once a week to remediate incidents. So that's basically, a, a first phase flow of the DLP policy architecture program there. So, once that is in place, then you can start, moving along, tuning policies, going to advanced policies like EDM, IDM, and moving along that maturity model or that capability model, as Matt pointed out there. So, taking all of these things into consideration can help get your DLP program unstuck or moving in the right direction. Obviously, communication is huge here in getting executive sponsorship.
So hey, I just wanted to thank you, Navin, for that. So given everyone some examples of best practices around how to respond and reporting and communication plan, and I'm glad you touched on that last piece about the policy architecture, because that's something that I was kind of thinking, even in my limited technical knowledge, being in leadership and not being technical anymore, I understood that to be a really important foundation for leveraging some of the advanced features that you were talking about with IDM, EDM, and even vector machine learning. So thank you very much. Got a few questions coming in. There's a couple easy ones that I am happy to answer, and then there's a couple that I think would be best if Navin took. So one question is about the DLP team. And Navin, in your opinion, what do you feel the most critical members of the DL team to be? If you could just touch on that.
Sure. So, the DLP team, usually it's security, IT security, and that team would probably consist of a policy manager, and that person is responsible for developing the policies for the entire organization based on the outcomes of steering committee meetings. So I think that is the most critical team member here is the policy manager, making sure that they understand the framework, the rule sets, maybe even exact data matching or IDM, making sure that they do testing properly before rolling out to maybe endpoints, because endpoint is has very high visibility into an organization, especially if you're doing any type of notification or prevention. So I think that person, the policy manager, is the most critical in conjunction with the incident response team, and they could be all the same person depending on company size. Once again, we've worked with very large to medium, small, and understanding the hierarchy or the company org chart is important as well to determining if this person is the best fit, and provide recommendations as well if they need more help, or they need someone else to triage the incidents to make sure it's being routed appropriately to the respective business units or even compliance. So the policy manager or incident response manager is very critical here.
So I'm typing a response. So this would be a policy manager and incident response team. And then honorable mention, you could say, would be a DLP admin, because we do need someone to kind of be an expert within the product. So here's another really juicy one, Navin. The question is, there's no column-based labeled cloud in the slide. So that's a good catch. And with DLP 14 and with cloud support, this person alludes to Symantec's partnership with Box, who is one of the leading cloud providers. and they need to confirm the extent of 14's visibility functionality within a box use case. So this person was told by Semantic in a presentation earlier this month that DLP 14 can inspect, quarantine, as well as delete files containing sensitive information that have been copied into box and stored there. Is this statement true? This comes from Joel. What do you think, Navin?
Yes, that is true, and there's a cloud prevent solution available. In addition to that, the new endpoint agent has cloud vectors built in to monitor these types of transactions. So, that is true, and endpoint has those response rules that can be leveraged to, block or quarantine that data.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, even Semantic predicts that by 2016, 50% of organizations' sensitive information is going to be up in a private or public cloud. So I've been taking shots at any of my buddies or colleagues that were naysayers about the cloud a few years ago, saying it's never going to happen. Well, it's happening, people. So that's terrific, and thanks for that question. That's a really terrific one. So kind of a follow-on to that, so we have a customer here that is has a renewal that's of interest here. So this affects a potential renewal of our Semantic contract in order to upgrade to the system up to 14. So yeah, hopefully we answered your question. You can also reach back out to us if you have any other questions, or if you want a phone call or something like that to talk through any other concerns you have about box support, or a path of getting to 14. We'd be happy to help you there or talk to you there. A page that shows all of our social feeds and how you can generally get in touch with us. And my email address that was shown in the beginning, as well as Navin's. Hopefully you've noted that. Mine is mreid, M-R-E-I-D, at itsdelivers.com. Thanks so much. I appreciate everyone's attendance. Thanks for the great questions and the dialogue. And we will see you on another ITS security-related webinar. Thanks so much, everyone.